You're listening to the Surgeons of Horror podcast. Hello, welcome to Surgeons of Horror. I'm your host, Saul Muerte, about to delve into another classic cult film that is called Sleepaway Camp. Those of you that stuck around for our previous podcast will know that we were able to chat with the great Felissa Rose to reminisce over this film and also have a chat about her latest feature film called Camp Twilight. So if you haven't heard that, quickly pause the button, go check it out because it might be something to listen to, or go and just listen to it after the fact. This one that we're going to be talking about, as I said, was a cult classic in the making. Very kind of low budget film that was actually made for the simple sum of $350,000. It went on to make $11 million at the box office. Massive take up. And a lot of that, as I spoke to with Felissa, was riding on the back of obviously Friday the 13th, which reignited the whole kind of slasher craze that came out around that time, and a lot of kind of people that lifted off that, basically teenagers getting slaughtered left, right, and center. This one doesn't shy away from that comparison, but also throws in the mix of it being at a campsite as well, which is exactly like Crystal Lake, as eager listeners of horror films would know. Before we start dissecting and discussing this one and kind of assess whether or not we believe that the cult status is genuine or not, what do we think modern horror film lovers will think of this film, I should introduce you to my colleague, who is none other than Mr. Richard Lovegrove. Welcome aboard, sir.
Hello, good sir. Good to see you again. Good to be camping away.
Camping away. Good to have you on board.
Carry on camping.
Oh,
I know. Oh, yes. True.
Carry on camping with Jason.
Yes.
Or in this case, Angela.
Angela.
So look, yeah, this, as I said, was a big cult film when it kind of, well, not when it first came out, but gained a cult following after the fact. I should probably mention too that it has also had 3 sequels following this film, which was Sleepaway Camp 2, Unhappy Campers, and Sleepaway Camp 3, which was called Teenage Wasteland. Neither of those 2 films actually featured Felissa Rose, who took on the title of Angela, the serial killer in the previous film and in the franchise. But here's the thing: it did star Pamela Springsteen in that role, and that name, if it rings a bell, more so the surname rings a bell. That's because yes, she is in fact the sister of Mr. Bruce the Boss Springsteen. And
it's Bruce Springsteen's tortoise.
It's his tortoise. It's like the tales of 4th grade nothing at band camp. But here's the thing, and both films are kind of they're very different to, and this is the thing, like it's hard not to talk about the original Sleepaway Camp without the big ending, which if you haven't seen it, you should probably turn off when we get to that point when we discuss it, because it is a big kind of revealment.
Heavy spoilers. But the good thing about this film is you shouldn't go look at anything before you watch it. Just watch it going. It's called Sleepaway Camp. That's all you should know. Yeah, just go watch it, and then come back when we talk about the reveal. Yeah, and then come back.
Yeah. Do that. But Felissa Rose did come back to reprise her role as Angela in Return to Sleepaway Camp, which was released in 2008. So the full film in that franchise. And also coming back would be the director of this movie, Robert Hiltzik, to direct that film as well. Excuse me. I'm hiccuping away.
Diaphragm.
Don't die. Not yet, anyway.
No, I was going to say I watched the first film and then I saw the second film, and that's when I stopped. Because again, it reminded me so much of Hellraiser in the way of going. The second film is completely removed. You've just got one facet, which is the slashy stuff. And I don't know, nothing really had substance for me in the second film. Whereas the first one was a hell of a lot of fun.
Yeah. And it's a different feel too. Like, and that was the thing, like, and it's hard. Part of its Sleepaway Camp, I guess, magnetism is the quirky nature of it. It's a very off-kilter film. And you can't get much more off-kilter than the Martha character that's in it, Aunt Martha, which we will get to as well when we talk about her. But it's and that's the thing. It's slightly off to one side, and it jars a little bit as you watch it. But that's part of its appeal, along with the fact that there's this natural element to it as well. Like there's a 10-minute baseball scene in this film, which a lot of people have kind of slammed the director for, saying it's so goddamn long. Why is that long?
I didn't find it that long. It's like in that scene, especially, it has, I think, my favorite line in a film I've seen to date, which is "Eat shit and die, eat shit and live, Bill." And that delivery is great. So, yeah, well, another thing too, being it's so poignant because it's a slasher flick at a summer camp, which for the first time in its cinematography in history, it's got like kids actually playing kids rather than 30-year-olds playing 15-year-olds. And obviously, I don't think you could do that now, as in it would not this same film, definitely. Because of a lot of the connotations and stuff like that. But because they are kids, it's funny, I never really questioned it until after it, and I saw a couple of interviews where they were saying, it's the first time it was kids, and I was like, oh, of course, they're all this age. But they're all of the things are justified. And so when you have the moment at the beginning where you have that off-kilter aunt, that sort of throws you off, and you're going, oh, okay, but that's just one little bit of information. Like in a Star Trek episode, you get something in the beginning of a season, and then you go, oh, they've come back.
It's I'm kind of, I don't know why I'm slightly remembering this, but there was a film that came out in early 2000s, and it was called Camp, and it was an American musical comedy drama, it kind of was like this again, it felt real low budget. It got a lot of attention on the festival circuits. But the reason I mention it is because similarly it was a bunch of kids, and it had this kind of real natural element to it, because you're just kind of filming kids in their natural elements, I guess, and just being themselves. And this is what this film did. The natural habitat of young today.
Children running wild, causing havoc.
Oh, bless them. And but that kind of reminds me, and I'm just trying to remember the guy's name who plays Jonathan Tierson, who plays Ricky, the cousin in this, and he, if you catch I basically watched the movie off the Shout Factory Blu-ray, and there's a couple of extras on there, and chats to the cast members and the directors and stuff about the making of the film. But he kind of talks in there and said that was what he loved about the script when he first got the script, is just like the language just felt real, like, and how kids would talk. And he said something about going into the audition process, and there was a few kind of swears or stuff that and the director was just like, I just want you to just let go, just kind of, I don't care what you say, I just want you to kind of let go. And he just said he was just going, he just let it go, and just every F-bomb under the sun and everything in between. And then he walked out of the audition, and was just like, I think I nailed that one. And he did, got the part. So pretty cool.
It's great, but it's also it's great that a director has that sort of approach to it, because a lot of the time you'll work with directors who purely approach it from a technical perspective, where it's all about the shot and communicating the story through that, and they don't have the experience to necessarily communicate to the actors, okay, this is what we're shooting now, and where your head's got to be at. And so to be able to write dialogue alone for adults is hard, and then to be able to go, oh great, this is how kids sound. I mean, it sounds like it's off the cuff, and I don't even know if that line at the baseball game was an ad lib, because it sounds like it's off the cuff. I'm
not sure about the how script heavy it was. I know that I think I'm pretty sure, and I correct me if I'm wrong, listeners out there, but I'm pretty sure I remember in the documentary that the director kind of gave a bit of free license around some of that, especially around the baseball game and things like that. That kind of free language kind of play and stuff. Yeah. All right. So look, let's. Before I ask you, before we delve into and dissect this baby,
before we go to camp.
Before we go to camp, we should probably ask you if you've been to camp before and seen this or are you a virgin to the Sleepaway Camp?
Yeah, no. Well, I'd never seen Sleepaway Camp. I had no idea about it. Surprised that I had never heard it or seen anything about it, but usually am when I see these things. From a camp perspective, no, I'm definitely not a camp person. I don't like going to camp. I remember going to the Great Aussie Bush Camp, which is near a reconstruction of Uluru.
Right, okay.
Site, and that's out west, New South Wales. Not a fan of having to walk to a shower with thongs on because you might get tinea from somebody else. But having said that, I have seen, obviously the Friday the 13th and situations like this. There was, I remember seeing, getting very into the Freddy Krueger films at the point at which they had the crossover film, and that was where I have most memories of that camp environment. But obviously, there's homage to it all. So seeing this, it made me just go, "Oh, this is really natural." I'm not. It's because you were saying it's an off-kilter thing. I felt like it was. I was on board from the get-go because of that quirkiness at the beginning, and everything feeling so comfortable at camp.
Yeah.
I was happy with people getting picked off. I was surprised at some of the things that happened and its quick severity, but I knew it was going to be a horror slasher flick. So I guess maybe that was part of the psychology that was going on in my head.
Possibly. Yeah. I mean, there are some kind of cool little moments too. And I think that's what lifts it up too, because you have the, as we said, these natural kind of elements at play, like this coming of age kind of stuff that's going on. And this search of identity, which is like the core kind of theme that's running through this film. But then, intermixed with these kind of big brutal kills that happen or these really bizarre death scenes that occur as well. So,
and practical effects wise, even one of the first deaths has some very impressive effects that I went back and watched, and because it's now high definition, you can see a lot closer and see things moving. Even with the original Evil Dead, they did a re-release where they had edited out some of the problems in the footage. There was an actor standing in the background when they're driving up the bridge at the beginning, and they doctored him out. And then there was a cable during one of the scenes where all of the stuff's coming out of her face. And I was but it just looks like another vein or something. I never, even when you show them side by side, I still can't see the difference.
Nice.
So even with those sort of things, it's the sort of thing of going with films like this. You don't want them to take too much liberty with the practical effects because there's a certain budget and stuff. But even with the budget that they had, they knew how to work with it. It's the same as when you look at Tom Savini. They can work with the nose putty and stuff like that to make the bullet come out and cheap. It only costs the nickel or whatever it is. And so and sparingly too. Whereas some slasher flicks really play on the gore. I recently looked at the Exorcist, and when you were talking about the subject matter, this film could go furthermore into the whole coming of age, puberty, and abuse sort of nature, which is where I was looking at it from the Exorcist, because there was the question of whether obviously you go through the science and stuff, but the only thing that they don't question is whether it was sexual abuse. And there's certain insinuations in the plot of the film, not the book, but the film, that insinuate that the director that the mother is working with may have molested her at some point, because even with her head turning around and then saying, "Did you know what she did, your cunting daughter?" and stuff like that. And that's in his voice. And his voice is heard beforehand, before the first major incident with the things flying around the room.
That's right.
So whether or not that was an intention of either the director and not the writer, because in the book there is a justification in which the demon acts as him, the man who died or potentially molested them, and says that he went into the room after he heard moaning, and then Reagan accused him of breaking up her parents and then throwing him or breaking his neck and throwing him out the window, killing him. But that's in the book, not in the movie. And I'm a big believer that medium it's independent. Like, even though you shouldn't have to read Harry Potter to go, who is this, or why do I have an emotional connection to character in film? And that's what this film does really well, because even from that beginning, you've got enough questions that lead you down a road of going, cool, I'm happy to not know all the answers, especially with the main character not speaking. That's enough intrigue alone, because we're happy to go, there's either a big incident, a post-traumatic stress moment that's caused this. Even watching The Boys, that's part of one of the characters. He refuses to speak because of the stress that she went through as a child. So many elements too, and that because they're not touched on too, and it keeps that more slasher flick vibe, it allows the audience to paint that picture. Because even from the first scene, I remember starting it off and I was watching all the characters and reading way into that first scene. Like, oh, who is this person? Like, who's the killer? It's the boat. They did it.
The boat. I blame the boat.
It's always the water.
Yeah, it always comes down to the water. So speaking of then, so let's start looking at the film, because in the opening credits, the first thing we actually see is a closed down summer camp, and it's looking like it's fall, and we see a sign that says Camp Arawak. Before then, we open up the film proper, and we're told that it's the summer of 1975, and we see a family consisting of a dad, it's never really said in here, but he's a divorcee. His name's John Baker, and he's with his two children, Angela and Peter, out on a lake near a summer camp in upstate New York. And they are quite happily, they're sitting on a old catamaran kind of thing, basically, like a little boat. And there's another kid who is taking a young girl out on a boat. And the kid in question is one of their camp counselors. And there's another girl that's on a set of water skis being towed along behind them. And the girl that's in the boat, it keeps pushing the kid to kind of let her basically drive the boat. And he eventually gives in and says, yeah, all right, fine. And of course, that's when everything goes wrong. The kids are swimming in the pool, in the lake. And the girl that notices first is the girl that's water skiing, which you think that's pretty impressive.
All that way back. Yeah. Having said that, the second that you do see her, she's always stressed from the very beginning. She's not comfortable.
No, she doesn't want to be out there. She's literally like the third wheel in this kind of scenario. It's like, like you're on the skis, I'm going to try and hit off with this girl. And so, but she sees, and obviously it's all too late. The boat kind of careers towards the catamaran, flipping it over and indicating that the dad is instantly killed. And we see one life jacket float past, so indicating that one of the kids has been killed. But there's this great moment where there's this bloke who's watching it all unfold, and I'm going to play the clip now. It's only 3 seconds, but I just love it so much. But at that moment, it's like, but like, well, who is this guy? How does he know? How does he know John? It's like,
and why is he slightly apathetic?
Is that why John was divorced? Was he having a relationship with this guy? Who knows?
Well, also too, I swear, I'm just trying to scrub through the footage now, but I swear too, when we see one of the I got the insinuation that like the father and one of the children, we didn't know which one was killed.
Yes, that's correct.
Sort of instantly or something like that. But yeah, it's such a random reaction for him just turning around going, John.
Oh wait,
Jason.
John. Oh wait, no, that's not John. That's Dave. Sorry, I thought it was John. It's Dave.
Sorry, go back to dying.
Go. Sorry about
that. The word Arawak as well is it's a language from the indigenous Caribbean island. It's like literally the only like language apparently that's left over from a South American tribe from the Caribbean, the Lacono population.
Wow. Okay. So what's the director saying there, I wonder?
I'm not too sure, because sometimes, like I read too much into things, and I just found out what the term axiom was, which is pretty much an assumption, as in without, like, it's the most likely thing to happen.
Yes.
But without actual evidence, it's the most likely thing to happen. So the ship in, what was it? Wall-E was called the Axiom. So I like that. It's the assumption. I really like that.
Nice.
Yeah. It's really cool.
No, that's
good
cool.
Old etymology.
Cool. Yeah.
I was going to say as well, I found Sleepaway Camp on YouTube of all places, which is great. The entire thing. It's amazing what gets flagged and what doesn't get flagged in this thing. But yeah, after that fantastic, great scene, we move on to, I don't know, one of the most fun scenes that really just reminds me of Drop Dead Fred.
Yeah!
It must be so much of Drop Dead Fred.
So much. I so much get what you're meaning. It's a really interesting scene. Oh, hold on. I'm just reading. Okay, sorry. Just going double back for a second. I was kind of half joking about the lover of John, but
I was about to say
somebody.
Spoilers.
Somebody has written a synopsis here saying after the small boat accidentally flips, John and the children begin to head ashore, where John's lover, Lenny, is calling to him.
As in, I wouldn't say this early in a synopsis but in the end, it's definitely an insinuation.
Yeah.
When she has flashbacks, when
Yep, that's right.
Her name, Angela.
Angela, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, Angel.
So anyway,
interesting. Just from an etymology point of view as well. And Angela, or it comes from angel etymologically, and Richard, which is Ricky, comes from hard rule. Yeah. So
there you go.
That's what their names
man. Pulling out the facts today, there, Mr. Lovegrove. And there's more. Let's go to what you were saying anyway. Sorry. So we are presented with the survivor, Angela, who is sent to live with her eccentric aunt, Dr. Martha Thomas.
Yeah, Doctor just dropped in there.
Yeah.
I love that.
Which an eccentric is and then some, because she is absolutely out there crazy character, and played by Desiree Gold, who was known for a lot of her kind of TV stuff, mainly on screen. And I'm just trying to think of one off the top of my head. A lot of soap, like basically soap operas, like The Edge of Night and All My Children and things like that. So known to kind of really ham up stuff. Anyway, is my point. And so she is incredibly eccentric in it. And in the extras of the Blu-ray that I have, there's a bit of a short interview with her, and she made a comment on the dialogue of the script, turning to the director and saying, "I can't read this. This is how do you even go about presenting the words in it?" And he was just like, "You just say what's written." And so she kind of went with it, and that's where this kind of weird kind of behavior comes across, because it's almost like she's
it's demonstrating. This is the emotion I'm supposed to be doing. This is contemplation.
It really is. It's like this overly played kind of
but still like subtle. I mean, it's I would say this is an eccentric character, definitely, but it's not necessarily overly played, and that's what I quite liked about it, because I had no idea, but was so intrigued with what her character had to do with this story at this point. And I just noticed as well, she has like a ribbon tied around her finger to remind her of something.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah. And she can't remember what it is.
Yeah.
Isn't that right? Like she goes, I've just got to remember why I've tied that around my finger now.
Yeah. Which is good, yeah. All these little drops in there as well. And even the drop of, because she's a doctor, she's able to have done their physicals. So she's able to give them the reports, which apparently must be a thing for going to camp, saying that you're healthy, you know?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, she can just do that. Self-confessed doctor.
Which is weird because, like, I don't know, in Australia you can go to camp and get ticks. Like,
yeah, that's it. Okay, so we are presented with a couple of young kids. We have Angela, who it says here is 14, but I thought she was 13 in the script. And she's with her cousin Ricky, who I mentioned, played by Jonathan Tisdale, who's a little bit older. And they are actually sent to Camp Arawak by Martha, who reminds them not to tell anyone how they got their signatures for their physical exams. Which is sus in itself. And so the buses arrive at the camp, and this is when we start meeting some of the other characters in the of the camp. So there's a kid called Artie. There's this creepy cook character.
Yeah, from the get-go. I mean, that was,
played by...
It was one of those things where it was going, well, he's obviously going to be the first to die, otherwise I hate this film.
Yeah, and he seemed to play that really seedy character really well, which is disturbing in itself.
But always in these sort of films, part of my mind goes, oh no, what are they going to do? Like, as in, what are you going to show in a 70s film, especially if these guys are kids, sorry, 80s film. But and also, can we just mention those pants? Like, everyone's short. I was born in 85, and like, I'm glad I missed that phase.
I wasn't. I was born a little before you, and I do remember those days. It's like, who wears short shorts?
Everybody.
Yes, everybody. Come on now. So we get this creepy cook guy admiring the children with no reservations in front of his co-workers, calling them baldies, which is really disturbing. And then we get Ricky basically introduces Angela to his best friend, who's a guy called Paul, and he shows Angela around the camp since he was there last summer, as in Ricky was. Angela isn't really talking at all, and doesn't respond when Paul talks to her, and backs away after he finishes the tour. And Ricky tries to talk to this girl called Judy, who was his former girlfriend from last summer at the camp, but she hardly acknowledges him. She's moved on, man.
Yeah, she's hilarious. She's like plucked out of a musical, one of those, like, bitches from Greece or something.
Yeah, that's it. That's it.
Yeah. But I also too like in the dialogue when they introduce the friend of Ricky, how he, like, talks about how well endowed, I think either one of the other people or something like that is, and then later on, like, apologizes for saying that in front of her.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. I don't know. I like that because it was obviously just a mate meeting another mate, and it was just like, oh, I shouldn't have said that in front of you. It's good writing.
It's good writing.
Especially for age 3.
Let's applaud it.
Yes.
Now. Because, particularly because of the reveal at the end, that comment has even more weight to it as well. So, look, speaking of Angela, so this is where we really we have met her already, but she's now in a social environment with her peers, and we get a really bigger indication of how much of a recluse she is and this introverted nature she has. But this kind of leads her to being a bit bullied by, like, the main tormentors, Judy being one of them. And there's a camp counselor character called Meg, played by Catherine Carmi. And during lunchtime, Angela's not eating much, and then is taken into the kitchen by the head counselor, Ronnie, played by Paul D'Angelo, to see if there's anything in there that she would at least eat. And at which point she's left alone with the greasy head cook, Artie. And Angela is taken into a back room by him as he intends to molest her. and he starts to unbuckle his belt to do said deed. And this is when Ricky kind of comes to her rescue, essentially. Comes charging in, and they basically flee the kitchen, and Artie threatens them.
Now, apparently that scene was shot when he's taking his pants or like undoing his pants and stuff like that, was shot without her being there. At least I saw that in another interview.
Yeah, that's right. Because at the time she was 13 when filming this, and her mum was on set the whole time. And there was a big thing. The director basically said that he didn't want any parents on site at all because he wanted the feel of camp actually on site. And the only kind of one of the exceptions was Felissa's mum. So, and because of that, she became a bit of a matriarchal kind of figure on set for all the other kids, which was kind of cool. Yeah. So, and I forgot where I was going to go with that. What were we talking about with that? I lost my train of thought.
That's right. Yeah, no, I was just going to say because the subject matter as well as we like get into the end of the film, but also even this scene especially, her character being that central to it, it makes sense that the parent should be there. Like the director should be saying, it's fine for them to be there, and what happens at the end and things like that. But also too, I was going to say it's interesting from a storytelling perspective because. The easiest stories are always told through a protagonist or someone who's out of that world, i.e. Ghostbusters Winston comes in. He can ask all the questions because he's not a scientist or a psychologist or whatever. So it's really great, even in the theatrical sense, because I've done a lot of street theater, and it's one of the hardest things you don't want to say the wrong thing. You don't want to obviously embarrass, but you're basically playing with insinuation the whole time. Leaves you open to a lot of potential problems. If you remove language altogether and like put tape over your mouth and just do mime, everyone endows, he can't speak or won't speak, so he must mean this. They go out of their way to justify. So in this sense, it's a great technique, vehicle or something like this to have her character as a mute or someone who won't speak, because then that's that protagonist. We're now seeing the film from her perspective, or at least at this point in the film, that's where I felt the film was trying to do it. Didn't feel like we were following Ricky's story so much as hers.
No.
Which was great too. But also too, to have Ricky as well actually on her side and not like an older brother. It's just like, toughen up, or seeing a situation that also might not benefit him and running away because he's cool or whatever. He's a cool guy, but the reason he's cool is because he's good.
Yes.
He's a decent.
That's right. He is. He's very much so. And he is. He often comes to her rescue in many ways, which also begs the question that he must have known all along about her to be that kind of protective. Do you know what I mean? There's this. It's never said that he does, but there is this.
No, but I think at the end, like there's a couple of theories and analysis I looked into online, and it definitely, it does seem to insinuate that there's a lot of different ways that could have gone down. But I do think that, at this point he's aware, but he's also grown up with it, because I don't know how old he would have been, but he only would have been a couple of years.
Well, he was a couple of years older than her, so being a couple.
His mum is dead. His mum is that eccentric aunt. I mean,
don't forget
he's insanely grounded, this kid.
Considering,
For some reason, I think in the back of my head thought that the aunt was more like she had just adopted the two. From two different, and that's what my brain was justifying. But also too, I was going to say, the guy with the cigar, who I think we see in that first scene, instantly, I don't know, I endowed him with just like, oh, cool, he's going to be like the wise mentor, like, or the one who's going to be the protector or something like that, which I love playing with that trait as well. Very cool. Now, another thing, the African-American guy in the kitchen.
Yes.
He has a very famous name because he's from a very famous family. He is James Earl Jones's father.
Okay.
Yeah. I could be wrong about that because I'm literally just going from memory from when I looked that up, but I think that is him.
Okay, that's kind of cool. Well, I'll have to kind of definitely keep an eye out.
There's a trivia for you.
Trivia.
Robert Earl Jones.
All right, Robbie
Earl Jones.
Robbie Earl
Bobby Joy. His name's Bobby Jones.
Come here. All right. Yeah. Well, I'm definitely gonna have to look that up now because you have intrigued me.
Yeah. That's what I'm here for.
Yes. And I've lost.
Yeah, his IMDb doesn't say whether or not he is the parent or child.
You're just sharing the name. Just
throwing it out there in the universe.
Oh. got me right around the chops, that did.
Yes.
Robert,
I was just going to say as well, whilst we're having this little moment here, we always say the Rotten Tomatoes score, and even though this is right in the middle of it and doesn't really have any context.
That's right. Yeah, he is the father of James Earl Jones.
There we go. Nice.
Cool. All right, awesome. Carry on, sir. Carry on.
Yes, no, I was going to say 78% on the Rotten Tomatoes score from the reviewers and 60% from the audience score. I'm surprised that they weren't both at like around 78 or 80.
Yeah, I would have said it was a bit higher. But I mean, maybe that people don't. I can imagine some people wouldn't kind of buy into some of the elements that are in it.
Obviously, like you know, the people who tune into this and are interested in this obviously like horror films, but there are some crazy people out there who just don't like a good slasher flick.
Yeah, god damn it.
Yes, as an escapist sort of thing.
What's wrong with you?
Yeah, but like, you know, even Children of the Corn, like, you know, as in that was another film that worked with kids and stuff like that, and I particularly loved that because you get a certain innocence or I don't know, a reaction from kids that seems honest, and like I said, the insinuation of that guy and saying all those creepy things it raises the stakes if they're 13. You go, oh shit, okay, now it's like, you know, even just saying that around the actors being that age, that's partially why they have 30-year-olds playing underage people. Yeah,
just look at Grease.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Says it all. And we all believed it. We all believed, and Beverly Hills 90210 for that matter. So, all right.
And the Golden Girls.
And pretty much, oh, God, yeah. If you really knew how old they were.
Yes.
So
all 16.
Yay. So anyway, back to Sleepaway Camp. All right, so so basically we then after the kitchen incident, we return to the pantry, and Artie is just trying to get this big vat thing going.
Huge pot.
Massive what the fuck is he cooking in there?
I know, that's what I was thinking. Is he boiling a student?
Like, I'm going to cook an ostrich. And like, from the neck down.
Yeah, like a whole pig.
Yeah, that's it. Right, dip it in. Right. Boiled ostrich, anyone?
Hour.
Yeah.
Or salt.
So it's very odd, but in the throes of it, he's climbing up rather delicately next to this thing, and we see an unknown assailant come in and basically knock him off this chair, and the large pot of boiling water then spills over most of his body, giving him severe burns. And we kind of cut to then Artie kind of as he's kind of whirled away, and there's the camp owner, Mel Kostic, who basically just pays off the rest of the kitchen staff, going, "Yeah, let's just pretend this didn't happen. Yeah, let's keep the camp open." And everyone's like, "Yeah, all right." Including the assistant cook Ben, Mr. Robert Earl Jones.
That's it.
And tells the replacement.
I also love he can still speak. Nothing has really stopped preventing him from saying who did it. Yeah. And so I thought that was, like, you know, the only sort of thing in this film that doesn't seem a bit right.
Yeah. Better stop that Angela. Why?
Yeah.
She burnt me.
That little mute girl.
Yeah. So anyway, but at this point we still don't know who the killer is.
No, you're right.
the next day we have Ricky, Paul, and the rest of the boys in their cabin, including this kid called Mozart. And this is the baseball scene. They go out and play baseball with Kenny, a kid called Mike, a kid called Billy, and a couple of the other boys from another cabin. And this is like a bit of a, as I said, some people view this as a bit drawn out. I did think that at one point. I was like, oh, this scene seems to be going on for a little bit, but not that I didn't mind it. I just was aware that I was like, oh.
Yeah, you don't see a whole game.
No, it's like the 7th inning stretch, everyone. So,
but it also communicates so much more about what the camp's camaraderie is, and that's exactly why what happens later on. Like this really sets Ricky's prominence in the camp, to me at least. So the older guys, I didn't know if they were like the camp counselors, as in like the teenagers, like the 18-year-old kids, versus the younger kids.
You get that impression that was what might be happening, but it's not clear, is it? But
no.
The counselors do kind of seem to, in this particular camp, do seem to intermix a lot with the activities that the younger kids are doing.
Well, because most of the time too, they're still in high school as well. Like, there's only 1 or 2 actual adults there.
Yes.
And so that's why there's so much debauchery and stuff like that, because it's the first time that kids are really allowed to run amok amongst ticks.
Yes. Yes, that's right. So then we get to later that night, and there's like a bit of a recreation kind of cabin where there's a bit of a dance thing happening. And this is where we get Angela's kind of accosted by the Kenny and Mike character who are mocking her for not speaking. And again, this prompts Ricky to kind of come up into the scene. He's with his friend Paul, and they get into a bit of a fight with the boys, and several others join in. And then after the brawl is broken up by the counsellor, Jean, Ricky and the rest of the boys involved in the fight leave. But Paul stays behind. And he kind of, at this point, there's a bit of at this stage, what seems like a genuine friendship forming between him and Angela. And he's kind of telling her about his misadventures and how Ricky would get into the stuff that him and Ricky would get into when they were younger. And Angela still doesn't talk in this bit, but she does seem quite intrigued with what he's saying, generally involved. Yeah. And as Paul goes to leave, this is when we hear her speak for the very first time when she says, "Good night." And he turns around and goes, "Oh, sweet, talk to me."
Space.
And then we cut to later again that evening, and we see Kenny, who is rowing a boat with his girlfriend Leslie. And he rocks the boat, overturns the boat, and Leslie angrily swims away. You bastard. A scene which is actually replicated again, which I've just realised is a bit of a nod, in Felissa Rose's latest film, Camp Twilight. Exactly same thing happens. Which I just realised. I was like, oh yeah.
I thought it was interesting too, like as well, because it is very well written for the camp environment. Like you've got the whole skinny dipping thing. You've got hitting on girls and everything like that. But the tactic too that the bullies take before they bully Angela, I think, don't they ask her out, or they're trying to? Yeah,
they're trying to. They are. Yeah. And then when she's not being responsive, it's that
their motivations, and then suddenly take a hard turn. Yeah. Exactly. And then this same situation, I'm assuming wanting to, kiss and be romantic with this girl. So why the hell would you upturn the boat? Yeah. I assume then you can be close, but in Australia, you don't take chances in the bush, in the wild, in the water. I don't know.
Hell no. Yeah.
The second that she starts swimming away, I was like, wait, she's swimming back to shore? I was like, fuck, don't get caught in reeds and shit. Like,
what are you doing?
Snakes and stuff. Like, interestingly enough, like as venomous as snakes are on the land, the most venomous snakes are sea snakes. So it's
there you go. You want to stay a while.
But in this, he upturns the boat, and it's obviously he's the only one out there. But he goes underneath the boat and he starts taunting her.
Yeah, that's right. He's underneath it, and he's like being even more of a dick.
Now, sound travels far further underwater.
Yeah.
So I was thinking, is he thinking that because it's an enclosed space with water underneath him, if he yells, it's going to make it's going to be louder than him outside of the boat going, "Hey, you silly pants." But maybe it was purely just to get him alone underneath that boat.
Basically, So that it's like I'm gonna hide under this now. Yeah. But it's there is no other reason, really, is there? It is a bit.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, never really. I don't know. I just kind of took it as that's what was happening. I didn't really analyze it, which was probably a bit foolish of me. But I
overanalyzed it.
Yeah, but that's kind of a cool thing because I mean, essentially, this is when the next kill happens, and we have him being again attacked by an unknown assailant. And he's pushed underwater. And then we get, in the morning, the discovery of Kenny's dead and decomposing body is found. And again, it's ruled as accidental by the camp owner. This sort of thing happens all the time.
It's a hot fuzz situation. Accidentally fell on her shears.
And
also, I was going to say the balls as well that this film had, even from the first kill and then this kill, to show the killer. You don't obviously see the face, but you see the back of the head and you see the hand. So instantly you're Sherlocking it and going, okay, well, the skin tone, it's like, it's a young hand, so you're reading into it. And what was it? When they filmed all of these, the boy who played Ricky, I think, they actually got him to
do the
stand
hands.
in. Yeah, to do that, and also to do the boat.
Yeah, because apparently Felissa's hands, because she's a girl, it looked too feminine, and they wanted a slightly more, a bit of a more.
They didn't want you to think exactly masculine straight away.
Yeah.
Now in this next scene, after we've seen the snake come out of the corpse's nose, we get the first scene with the cops, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now the cop with the infamous moustache.
Yes, that's it. The growing and shrinking moustache.
Which I assumed was like in a time of VHS, not that big a deal, but in high definition and stuff. It's just it's Groucho Marx hilarious.
Yeah. Well, apparently he was called. I think this is later on, but he was called back to do a shoot, and so his moustache changes shape, which has become as in like he got called back for reshoots.
And he had to shave it off for another role.
Yeah,
and so I actually thought it was painted on, but it's like a stuck-on moustache.
Yeah, that's it. But it definitely looks very different. One
of these things.
The cop's name is. That's it. Oh my God! It's Frank. It's the cop, Frank.
Exactly.
Okay, so later that day, Angela walks up to Paul and actually begins to talk to him. Hairy eyebrows. For the sake of those that may be listening right now, I've completely lost Dr. Lovegrave on a bit of a. He's gone down a moustache escapade with a little prop. So later that evening, we have. Angela actually walks up to Paul and she begins to talk with him as he watches the girls playing volleyball. And this kind of annoys the Judy character because she's got a bit of a soft spot for Paul at this point. Meg tells Angela, so Meg is like one of the school counselors there, that she either must participate or do nothing, which includes talking with the boys. Like, you're going to join in or you don't do anything and don't talk to the boys.
Or no boys.
No boys for you.
Join in or no boys.
And that evening, Paul and Angela then go to the rec room to watch a movie, and they leave when the movie's over, hand in hand, as Angela slowly starts to become more friendly with him. When they are alone, Paul tries to give Angela a kiss and get a bit full on, but she gets uptight and walks back to her cabin. He's like, for God's sake.
This is when we get that flash?
Yes.
No, this isn't when they're on the... Is this when they're on the beach?
Yeah. There's a bit of a... He goes to give her a bit of a fondle.
And then she sees the the moment with the boat accident from the beginning.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
Yes. And then we get the next day at the lake, and Paul sits next to Angela, and who tells him that she cannot go in the water for the fear of the water. And Paul gets up and leaves, and then again Meg arrives again, the counsellor girl, and she asks Angela if are you going to go in and swim? But Angela doesn't talk to her, and this just annoys Meg.
Yeah, I was going to say, doesn't Meg or Judy come up first, then Paul leaves? And I was like, that's a pretty douchey thing to do.
Yeah, he just walks off and leaves them. Then we get Meg shaking Angela because she's not talking until Ronnie pulls her away and tells her to leave Angela alone. Ronnie being another one of the counsellors.
Like Michelin Man.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, the big guy.
I had a PE teacher when I was at school who wore exactly what he's wearing, except he had a big moustache as well.
Wow.
We used to call him the Paddle Pop Lion.
Ah, yeah. Which
yes.
I don't know if I don't. Well, we didn't have paddle pops in the UK, as in the character that you're referring to. But I wonder if our States listeners are aware. But anyway,
yes.
I don't know.
I'll see if I can find him.
Yeah, look at the. What was I going to say? Yeah, I had a similar teacher. But what's the thing? There's a moustache thing going on. Anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Should.
So, yeah, but Meg is a bit pissed off and being a bit bitchy. And then we go to the girls' cabin, and this is where Judy then starts approaching Andrew and is angry, thinking that she got Meg into trouble. And Judy's been a bitch herself, begins mocking Angela again and asks her, hey, how come you never go in the shower while everyone else is in the shower? And how come you don't go swimming? How come you don't change clothes with the other girls? And Angela just sits there and not talking. But it's clear at this point.
It's like Eddie from It.
Yeah. But we also have Angela. So she's clearly hiding something at this point, but we don't know what it is. We cut to later in the day, and Angela is going over to the boys' dorm, I think, and this is where she gets hit in the face with a water balloon by Billy and his friends.
Yeah,
who are on the roof. And again, Ricky comes in. This is the bit where I think he was asked to audition, where he's like swearing like a trooper at the kids on the roof. As he comes to the aid, and he's like, I'll kill him. And a little while later, while his friends go off to play basketball, Billy stays behind in the cabin. He goes into the restroom for a dump. A wicked dump. I'll be with you again. Gonna have a wicked
great
dump.
writing.
Yeah. And this is probably the strangest kill scene in the movie, where he's in the cubicle and he's kind of locked in the cubicle, and then all of a sudden there's like a split in the vent from the window, and we see somebody with a beehive essentially shake the hive on an edge of a stick where the bees then come out, and then allegedly, like, the point is that they start attacking Billy, who's stuck in the stall, going, help me, let me out. And
even though we don't see anything flying around,
flying around, and he gets stung to death. And I think the guy the visual effects guy from memory was talking about the shot we have, and he said I don't remember what we stuck on that corpse's face, but the bees were like drawn to it like anything. And like the shot itself is literally, the whole head is just covered in bees.
Wow.
But yeah, there you go.
What's it like, those people who wear the beards, or you can, I remember, I think it was a test in something like I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here, and what you've got to do is you've got to put a queen somewhere on you, and then they and then just stay calm. But like, you can those people who do it because in sideshow acts and stuff like that, it's full on.
That's it.
But I kind of like, again, it's the same as it being a low budget thing. Not seeing the bees, we know what's happening. We hear the sound effects.
Yeah.
It's the same though with the beginning. Just because we can see, and it's most likely Ricky's hand, or it looks like something. Like, didn't make me go, oh, it's him. It was just like, well, maybe he was the only actor there to film it, or maybe the director's trying to do something else, or like, I like that, and that's.
Well, this also leads to the fact, like, because it was Ricky doing it, this also leads to the other theory at the time where they thought it was 2 killers and not just the one as well, and that Ricky was a part of it as well, which has been bandied around. So what happens then? So when Mel then, so the counselor chick, learns about Billy's death. Oh no, not Mel. Sorry, that's not the counselor chick. I was thinking of Meg. Mel's the guy that owns the place, isn't it? Sorry, he learns about the death, and he becomes a bit more settled now because it's like the 3rd death, and he's like, "Oh, I want the camp to be shut down." And he at this point,
after 3,
after 3, but
3 deaths.
he actually becomes suspicious of Ricky. He thinks he's the one that's behind it because they keep bullying Angela, and he thinks that's the reason that's happening. And meanwhile, the relationship between Angela and Paul starts to get a bit strained during the evening, and Paul attempts to make out with Angela on the beach. This is the beach bit. Sorry.
This is the beach bit, sorry.
Yeah. And that causes Angela to have a flashback to her youth when she and her brother Peter witnessed their father in bed with Lenny. And Angela rejects Paul, who tries to have sex. That's what he says in the moment of climax, too. John.
Lenny.
And every Lenny. John.
Lenny.
Rocky.
Ricky.
I'll put it away.
Angela. I don't know. There's not an Angela one.
There's not Angela. Jesse.
Angela.
Put your pants on. Total sidetrack. We lost in my confusion. Yeah, sees them in bed.
That's right. But then there's another shot of a bed rotating around with the little boy and the little girl. Yeah. I'm not too sure which one's pointing at which, but I think it's the boy is pointing to the girl.
Yes.
And then it spins around, and then it cuts, and it's resetting the kids in the bed. So you're always seeing the boy in the position pointing at the girl.
Yeah.
I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
And you don't know what the hell is going on.
That's really, it's a really weird moment, to say the least. And this just results in Angela rejecting Paul with all the flashback stuff happening because he is trying to kind of get it on with her essentially, and she just runs away.
Which also too from a motivational sense, because like before this, she trips him. She goes in for a kiss and then trips him. So it's like whether or not she's intending to do what she's going to do, like from the get-go of his interest, purely because he's interested, or is she just confused?
Yeah, I think it's more the latter. I think like there's a moment where she's generally interested, and then gets confused in the moment of it. It was like, oh, hold on, I'm not meant to feel that way, and getting kind of a bit lost, and then reacting to the scene in question that we're seeing the flashback of her father. Then,
Remind me at the end when we get to the last scene, because there's a musical reference that I think.
Oh, cool. All right, sounds good. Intrigued. Okay, so then we get to the next day and we're following Paul now, who's a bit kind of confused about why Angela was so angry and why she rejected him. And then he becomes easily seduced by the Judy character, who kind of lures him off. And this is during a game of capture the flag.
Capture the flap.
Capture the flap.
Capture the flag, yeah. Good old capture the flag games.
And we have a game, which this is, assembled by the counsellor, Jeff. And then at the same time, in the woods, Angela and Ricky are talking about Paul and his intentions, where Ricky expresses to Angela that he doesn't quite trust Paul. But Angela reminds Ricky that Paul's just a friend. And at which point they happen to see Paul and Judy kissing, which prompts Angela to run off again. A little later, feeling guilty about what happened between him and Judy, Paul attempts to explain himself to Angela while on the beach at the lake. But this time, she does not want to talk to him. She's like, no, fuck you. And then we also cut to the evening now. And this is where we meet Meg again, the counsellor chick, as she's preparing for her date with Mel, the owner, which massive age gap kind of question mark.
Yeah. I was just going to say, just before this, I think that's when they have a sequence where she's actually thrown into the water.
Oh, does that happen first? Oh, shit.
Yeah,
okay.
Again, I'm just scrubbing through on YouTube, and that's coming up just before that Meg moment. As in, it's insinuated before that.
Yeah.
But this is the same guy.
Yeah. And this is the bit where Ricky. That's right. And Mel's grabbing Ricky because he thinks he's behind it. He's going, I know it's you. I know what you're trying to do. Stop trying to protect her. And and that's where she gets thrown in the water. That's right.
Yeah. Then I love it too because rather than taking him to an area and like handcuffing him or locking him in a cage or anything like that, he's just going to shake him. Yeah. This is going to solve the problem.
All about
You're a murderer. I knew it was you. Stop it.
Stop shaking me. Yeah. And that's it. I've shaken all the sillies out now.
Like a baby.
We can carry on. It's all good. Then we get...
But that's the same point that Meg throws her in the water.
Yeah, that's right. And that'll be why we get the revenge moment as Meg is getting ready. And this, hands down, I should say, is the big nod to Psycho because the shower scene that we get with a twist. With a twist and a slice of lemon. And we have Meg who is having a shower, and at which point we have a knife come up, embedding itself into the back of the shower itself, which is one of those kind of fibro kind of...
it's an aluminium sheet.
Yeah, that's right. So it embeds through that, somehow impales Meg through the back at the same time. And then is sliced downwards. Which you just go...
I think it might have been Friday. Was Kevin Bacon in Friday the 13th?
Knife, yes. The original one, where it comes through the...
But he's lying on the bed and he does that. But the killer holds his head back. That's what I felt was missing from this. Like, she steps into it. It's her own fault. Meg did it herself. If she had slipped or something, then I don't know. Because there's nothing holding her towards that. But I still thought that was really good, pulling it down and tearing it, and you can see her going like that.
Yeah, that was a cool bit, I have to admit. It was kind of a nice moment, even though the logistics is a bit...
I think you could pierce, but just because recently I saw Enola Holmes, and at the end, they the two characters hide behind a sheet of a suit of armor, and someone's coming at them with a double-barrel shotgun. Within a pretty close range, couple of about 10, 20 feet. And he's firing shots. And so I was thinking that he's shooting a shotgun, so those are flying out everywhere, but they could be shooting buck shots. Yes. But if they're shooting buck shots, they're concentrated, they would definitely go through a suit of armor, because suits of armor became redundant once firearms came out. And this is the earliest muskets, any ball that would fire out of that, because it would penetrate that suit of armor. Suits of armor was really only for glancing blows or for mainly swords and arrows. And that's why they had that peak at the front. Yeah. So I do think with a Bowie knifey type thing, it's like a survival knife. Yeah, you can get through. It's a flimsy sheet of metal, and as I said, I hate the showers at those camps. So
I'm not. I guess I'm not questioning the logistics of it being able to pierce through the metal casing of the shower and into a body. I'm more questioning how it could then still slice downwards.
I see. Yeah.
Because
I feel like we need a Mythbusters. We need a Surgeons of Horror.
We do
busting the myths of whether or not how can we kill these.
We need a cadaver volunteer.
So Great Aussie Bush Camp. Invite us out there. We'll bring a whole bunch of kids into this experience.
And we're going to test it out. Throw some beehives into a toilet.
We'll just get parental consent.
Right. Your children may or may not live. So we have the next death scene essentially with this Meg girl being killed, and but her disappearance kind of goes a bit unnoticed at first. And the camp activities go on as usual, and the social kind of taking place. Yeah,
a whole bunch of kids out to like a little off camping.
That's it. Angela is again approached by Paul, who tries to apologise about what happened with Judy. And at this point, Angela tries to tell Paul to meet her later. Or just meet me later at the waterfront after the social. You're like, okay. Then we get these...
That's also, too, where it's a shot like this and like they're both supposed to be here, and she turns around and goes, meet me later on. Isn't it? Something like that.
It is. It's like as if talking to off camera, like it's her own.
Ready for my close up, Mr. DeMille.
Soliloquy.
Yeah.
Little did he know that I wouldn't be there as myself.
Oh, so little. So little did he know.
So little did he know that I would be there. Something else to present. Then we have we have 6 young kids who throw sand at Angela. After they're taking that camp counselling thing with Eddie. 2 of them asked to go back because they feel sick. And Eddie takes the 2 back to his car and drives them back to the camp. But when Eddie comes back, he finds the other 4 children in their sleeping bags, hacked to bits with Eddie's axe, which was used to cut wood, lying on the ground, and it's dripping with blood.
I didn't even I was just like, the killer's got a knife.
Yeah, but yeah, like kids. This is like the young kids have been killed. Like 4 young kids have been killed. So this is probably and I think this is.
It's like the only death that's questioned.
Yeah, the director even said himself that it was the one bit he probably found was pushing things a bit too far.
This is the sort of scene that you would easily say the studio has said, no, we need more.
Yeah, we need more death. We need more deaths in this. Yeah, who can we get? What about the little guys? What about these little kids? They don't do fucking anything. Let's kill a couple of these kids.
It might have just been that. Take a purely innocent thing and see it destroyed. Will create that horror element. Yeah. Even in Fight Club, when he beats the face of Jared Leto and then says, I wanted to destroy something beautiful. And you're sort of like, whoa. And everyone's just like, don't fuck with him.
Yeah. He's a little bit special. Talking about split personalities. So then we get banana splits. That's banana 1, B1 and B2. Basically, it's all about split personalities.
Exactly.
Meanwhile, Mike and Judy are kissing, and Mike hides when Mel stops to ask where Meg is.
Do you have to kiss so wet?
Yes.
Great
Mike decides that he'd better leave, and this is where Mel finds Meg's dead body in the shower stall, and he still thinks Ricky's the one behind it. And so this
is sort of what makes him go, now I got to do something.
I'm gonna kill this kid.
And so he gets one of his cigars and just makes him smoke it.
So Judy also at this point has decided to skip the social to be with Mike, and she goes back to the girls' cabin, and he's killed by an unseen killer who enters and pushes her out. At which point the murderer then creeps in, shoves a pillow on the face of Judy, and forces a curling iron somewhere unknown, hinted at possibly her vagina.
Most likely.
Yeah. And probably
again, creative kills, but didn't need to say anything.
Yeah, well, we don't see. It's insinuated, but in that, we definitely don't want to see that.
The only thing is that Judy is incapacitated by a punch to the face from the assailant.
That's right.
Now, that would also be something I think I would question, because I don't think that someone the killer's size, regardless of whether it is either 2 people have been insinuated now, would be able to make someone unconscious from that, as in so that she's incapacitated.
The one killer punch.
Yeah, well, that's it. Yeah.
Yeah. I know what you're saying.
Having said that, though, it's a fun movie.
Yeah. Punches aside. Okay, so we have Judy's death,
which is now reminding me of arachnophobia, because a hand goes up and does this sort of thing.
Oh yeah. After the social, the camp is thrown into panic when Eddie arrives and tells the counselors about the deaths of these 4 kids. Ricky,
I just imagine him reading it off like a minutes. Guys, so we've had 4 deaths in the last hour.
Fortunately, it's the young ones that have been killed this time.
Younglings.
I've got here butchered in their sleeping bags, which is quite delightful.
and a vomit, which is always good.
Vomit, yes. And next on the agenda, we're all out of sweets. So if somebody can quickly go to the shops and arrange that.
No,
the sweets. Yes,
all the
licorice, all sorts. I'm afraid of God.
Mm-hmm.
Where am I going with that? Losing my track again.
I was going to say maybe it's when Ricky's just walking down the street eating like something like an Almond Joy.
Ah, yes, strutting stuff, and he's missed the social because he was feeling sick, and he overhears the news before he then gets attacked by Mel, who accuses him of killing Meg and all the others, and he starts beating the fuck out of him.
Yeah,
seemingly to death. It's led to believe.
It's scary too because he starts open slapping him and then he just starts like 2001 Space Odyssey, just slamming him, and you're like, fuck.
He's like, stop, man, stop.
Yeah, even just at this point now, I can't remember if Ricky dies or not.
he doesn't die.
Good.
It's insinuated that he has, but he doesn't. Mel then stumbles into a camp archery range where he's like, oh my God, it can't be you. It can't be you.
Yeah.
And at which point he's shot in the throat with an arrow.
Like, amazing accuracy too. I mean, wherever this killer is training, it's paying off.
Ninja punches, killer shots with arrows. It's experts
curling iron
insertions. She's got it down pat. Another killer.
She's definitely exceeded expectations in the penetration department.
Yes, the holiest of holies. And Ronnie calls the police at this point tells Marie to gather the other counselors to round up the surviving campers, put them in one cabin, set fire to the cabin, run away
to Canada,
because let's get out of here. So that they can root out the killer, essentially. The counselors and the police then scour the camp, and Angela meets Paul on the beach, at which point she tells him to undress. And Paul's like, boy, yeah, sure, I'll do this. And then Ronnie and Marie then find the dead Meg and Mel and realize things are getting heavy. And Frank the cop comes back. Mustache Frankie. Mustachio. And Jean finds Ricky, who is still alive. This is the bit I meant. So they find Ricky who's still alive. Jean carries the badly beaten Ricky away to a waiting ambulance as Frank radios for backup. Ronnie and Susie, the names are all blurring at this point. But anyway, they basically find, this is what they basically are going to search for any other survivors. And this is where they find Angela, who's completely naked on the beach, softly singing to herself and clutching a large knife and Paul's severed head in her hands. Angela is at this point then revealed to be both the killer and a boy, which leads to her to be the thought to be dead Peter instead of Angela. Now this shot itself has become the signature shot of the film because it's the big reveal shot. And the people weren't sure how to do this, or whether or not to at first have the shot of Angela, as in Felissa Rose, with a fake appendage between her legs. But realizing that probably
like a prosthetic or something.
Yeah, realizing that probably wouldn't have worked. I think the guy actually did make a prosthetic appendage as well. But they didn't go down that road. They instead made a lifelike face mask of Angela with a big open mouth scream thing, and they got an extra in to play the role of Angela and just sticking the mask on. And apparently
uncredited as well.
Uncredited, yeah. Apparently had to get him completely fucking legless in order for him to do this scene. And he was never seen again.
Yeah.
Some say
yet his penis is one of the most popular and well-renowned public figures on Instagram.
Some people say he's still out there somewhere, with the mask still.
Yeah. No, but that moment when she stands up and she has that shot of her, that sort of thing, scared the shit out of me, because it was sort of like the culmination of moments of going, I didn't want the Paul character to die. Yeah. And that point was sort of like, oh shit, she ripped off her head. She stands up. She's got this insane smile on her face. Yeah. And that look alone is very disturbing.
It is because I think it lends. Just if I can interject for a second, I think also because of because it is a mask. It's a fixed shot of look. It's not moving, so it has this kind of. It lends itself to this.
The
weird
mask
Silicon Valley thing. Yeah.
The mask that's referred to in the documentary, I'm pretty sure, is the full frontal nudity mask that was put on the extra. There's two shots, one before that, which is the actual actress, and that's that face. That is the one I'm talking about. The prosthetics for me always never communicate the same, because you have to hold the thing for like half an hour.
Yes.
So to do that, obviously everything starts to relax and stuff so you'll never get this fear in the moment element, unless it's been doctored or actually made by an artist beforehand, before the mold taking. So that's what I meant. Her shot with that face, I thought was terrifying, more terrifying than the prosthetic and the reveal of the front. But also too, there's so much blood down here. I didn't know whether or not she'd mutilated herself as well. And so I was like, is she trying to give herself a bit of There was a German film I remember seeing about a Jewish guy who was just trying to get through, and he was put into a situation where he had to be in the German army during the Nazi time. And there was a scene where he was stressing out and mutilating his penis because he was circumcised. So he was trying to make it so that he didn't appear Jewish when he was in the showers with the other German officers and stuff. And it reminded me of that, where it was just this intense moment where maybe this is the crisis for that character. To deal with it. But I also thought it's probably just blood from his head. It's blood from wherever, the mutilation.
Yes. But it's also there's this kind of growling kind of sound that she's kind of making as well, which is also. I'm sorry, I've sent that thing twice to you. Sorry. This growling kind of noise that she's making, which kind of is this almost animalistic kind of sound. It's like literally the wheels have come off, and her mind has become unhinged in this frenzied moment, which you could analyze that for quite a in-depth period, which we don't have the time to do so in a short film or podcast discussion. But really kind of cool moment at the end. It's like I said, I was supposed to give people a bit of a warning that we were going to mention that bit too. Anyway, you've heard it now.
I think we've given them enough time.
But then we get the climax of the film following this kind of big reveal moment is the flashbacks, and it's shown that Aunt Martha, gained custody of Peter and decided to raise Peter as a girl, already having a son, as in Ricky, and coming to the conclusion that another boy simply would not do. No, that would not do at all. It's also implied that Peter / Angela was mentally affected in a very negative way after seeing her father sharing a homosexual experience or embrace with another man.
I think it'd be more the death of her sibling and father.
That's what I took it from, more so than some sexual
and then it's confused by the father's relationship and knowing what society deems that are necessary at the time. Yeah. But now she's forced to be cross-dressing, and so obviously her identity would be just insane. Yeah. And that's cases too that's happened in a lot of life. I mean, especially because of the society reputation that one might get. A lot of the time, people who had children out of wedlock would say that like they would be raised as the sister of the person who would actually be their mother. Or something like this. And it's so tragic because then they might not even find out, like, into their 30s or something like this, or, not at all, or everybody else knows and they don't know, and it's just this cruel sort of thing. But I was even going to say too, there's a musical called Hedwig and the Angry Inch.
Yes.
Which is about again East Germany.
It's an awesome film.
It's so good, yeah. And a guy falls in love with an American GI and takes him back over to America, but to do so, he has to have a sex change, and they get a dodgy one in a back alley and stuff like this, and so it doesn't actually. It literally just makes a gash, an open wound that appears to be, and then it's passed by a doctor, and it's awful. So the reason it's Hedwig and the Angry Inch is because that's that sort of sewn up thing there. Yeah. But within that, it's that dual identity of also going, who am I now that I have no gender specificity.
Yes.
I identify as both male and female, but then society's point of view to it. I just thought that was an interesting thing as well to bring up because it is a subject matter that I don't know whether this film was really trying to go that deep into that side of it or if it was just more a shocking payoff. But because I rather than all of those things, I was more surprised that she killed him.
Right, okay. Yeah, I guess so. I mean, I get that, but I think I don't know. I definitely went down the angle of or avenue of going. Now that's really interesting, and I wondered. I leapt straight to I wonder how a modern film-going audience would approach that ending. With the transgender equality kind of thing. Would somebody who classifies themselves as transgender be approving of this film, or would they find it scathing because of the depiction of it? Yeah, that's where my head was at, and I generally don't know the answer or how I feel about that because, like, this is more about like the transgender kind of component is actually forced on the Peter character in this who is Angela.
Yeah.
So it's not like a choice. Yeah. It's not one born out of choice. And if anything, the villain in this isn't really Angela / Peter. It's Aunt Martha who kind of forced this thing upon her nephew. And she was like, I mentioned this to Felissa Rose in the interview, was like, she's like the Frankenstein who's created this, like a monster and confusing psychologically fucking up Peter to the point that, he's become murderous in his output. And I think that just puts it definitely puts an interesting spin on the serial killer kind of slasher concept. And I think, to me, that's what, regardless of where you sit with the representation of somebody of that character, it definitely makes it a marking point of who Peter / Angela is, and the psychological impact that has on them makes her character so much more in depth than your average serial killer.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So, like, instantly kind of right at the very end of it, you just go, well, I have so many questions now.
And also, there's a lot of motivation that you can see justified too within like that.
100%. And then this whole, it comes down to not just, it's like I said earlier on in the podcast, it comes down to identity. And when you have your identity stripped away from you, what part of you still tries to hang on to the part of you that was before, or is willing to let go of that, and to what degree does that impact have on you? There's a lot of questions that we as a society still can't answer. It's still to this day people argue over it to the nth degree, and wrongfully question the role that people that classify themselves as transgender have in society. I don't think things are that straight. I mean, I'm going a very kind of, I'm coming out and just kind of talking very kind of open-minded about my own views on this subject, in that don't think gender is something that is so black and white. I don't think you can kind of label things that easily. And I think it's the indigenous community, one of the indigenous communities in America, from the Native Americans, actually have one of these things that puts up, that basically, like, they split they've got like a representation that you tend to fall in one of 4 characters. You're either a male, female, male, or female. Like, and I
again,
kind of,
head big.
Yeah, and I kind of like that. Like, I think, yeah, that's right. We're not. It's not just male and female. Like, it's not that easy to kind of place oneself. And I think that's where a lot of the grey line is, I guess, and that's where the topic of
absolutely
comes up. It's not resolved by any stretch. So yeah. But I mean, that's not for us, mere, like horror podcasters, to kind of try and resolve in a discussion. But I think what my point is I think that's what makes this film a bit more. I think that's possibly why, not just the nostalgic element of this film, but I think this is why this film still carries weight today. And and I often ask our podcasters, as you know, Richard, what you think a modern going audience would think of this. And I think because of this character, this intriguing character, I think it does. I think it does still resonate. But what are your thoughts on that? Do you agree with that, or?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like, I'm definitely one who overanalyzes things and tries to give a lot of benefit of the doubt and credence until, like, I want to make everyone smarter. Like, not make everyone smart. I just want, us all to get along to the next day.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, but even with that, like, the idea that you mentioned is very similar to Aristophanes' account of what Plato's Symposium on the origin of love is, where trying to think of it off the top of my head, but in Hedwig the Angry Inch, they have the song Origin of Love, in which case it's the children of the earth are woman and woman back to back. The children of the moon, I think, are man and man back to back, and the children of the sun, they might be all wrong, but and the children of the sun, the other one is man and woman back to back. And they got really to the point where the human race got so arrogant and were expanding that they had to sort of do a reset. So all the gods got together and said, what should we do? Should we just kill them? And Zeus said, I'll cut them up into little lizards like I did with the dinosaurs. And then one of the gods said, like, no, let's split them down the middle and put the wound around the belly button, and so they'll always have a reminder. But in that, we'll always be looking for our other half. And so I've always found that idea of the origin of love, after hearing that, it's not necessarily, love necessarily being another person. It also could be your other half being other half of you within yourself. Or majority of that, you're constantly trying to find whether or not it was male or female, whether or not, it matters really in that. And even in the reflection of seeing this in the film, I'm also not one to sort of go around and just say, because they're the murderer, they are a bad person. Obviously that has a lot of weight to be picked apart, that sentence. But in this case especially, that's why I was saying you can see the justification for why at the sexual nature of a camp alone, where it's all about coming of age and exploring that. And the scariness of that, because you're having to be intimate and trusting with someone you don't really know, and it's another person for the first time. So that then, exactly, you have her situation where she's not allowed to reveal any of this, an eccentric mother who is most likely been putting her on hormones as well. So that against her will at this point, whether or not she had conscious mind to turn around and say, I don't want to be blah. You're a parent, and thus it's your responsibility to give them the most best outcome for the world in there. And that's not saying whether or not raising them as any gender specific, whatever, but any outcome that you can that's going to benefit their life. I thought it was great. I think that nowadays probably it would get more light. It's going to get more Twitter hate because we have Twitter. But if everyone had their own printing press, back when it came out, we'd have that. If everyone had their own magazine that was broadcast. But in the broader schemes of what it could actually be said, I mean, it exists out there and it's on YouTube, which is great. Which is surprising again because of the full frontal stuff. But I would be very interested to hear about from those communities what they would be thinking about it if it's something that they thought communicated a different perspective, or something that maybe people don't subject matter that people don't want to hear or don't want to speak about.
Yeah. No, I'm the same ilk. That's exactly where I kind of came out with it, because I often think that it was like when we were talking about Big Trouble in Little China with Ant, and I kind of asked it because he is of Asian orientation. I kind of asked him about the depiction of Chinese people on film, because there are moments on it you go, is that Western cultural depiction of and how an Asian person would be on film, or is that generally, do you think that is depicting them? And he's like, no, it generally, like, because particularly with like all the martial arts kind of representation of it, he kind of was like, well, that's what martial arts should look like, and he'd grown up with it, and he was like, that's the first Western film where he was like, they actually got it right. So things like that, he was like, yeah. So, but it's the same kind of thing here, with the transgender thing. It makes me question, like, well, is that fairly representing somebody like that, or does And I don't fit into that category, so I can't answer that question. But it makes me, want to search for the validity of it, So,
but it also is too opinion. I mean, in terms of it, like it said certain things to me, which I'm choosing to use in a positive light too.
Yes.
But I remember I was on film set the other day, and I heard one of the other actors in the background was talking to somebody else, and it was I think he was Jamaican, and he said, "Oh, you don't think that Blazing Saddles is a racist film?"
Ah, yeah.
And the other guy was like, and instantly I was like, that guy's probably just been asked what's his favorite funny movie or something like this, or they're talking about funny movies. Because, oh, this such and such. But I watched it again recently, and it was co-written with Richard Pryor, and he was originally going to be in the lead of that. But again, I watched it and I was like, I don't see that as a racist film, because I see that it's making fun of racism. Yeah. Just because they're using the language, they're trying to use that as the weapon of seeing how stupid it is by the old woman who's all sweet and nice, gives the pie, but still says, like, and you'll be polite enough to say we didn't speak. It's a comedy making fun of all of that. And in that regards too, that's why I think that everyone's opinion is an interesting thing to hear, because
definitely.
And as long as it means that the books aren't burnt, like, as in, if this film can still be available, because there's a lot of archives that sort of do get deleted because no one watches them, and if a film like this, like, got deleted, I think a lot of people would be upset, not only because of the people who were in it, but because of it's something that I told my sister to see. I told a whole bunch of kids that I was teaching the other day. I was just like, it's a lot of fun. There was twice when I was watching it that I thought to myself, this might be my favorite film I've seen in 2020.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Okay, there you go.
Just because I really enjoyed it so much. And then with that ending, leaving it where it was too, I was just like, I really enjoyed it.
Nice. Oh, well, you just kind of jumped to the answer to my next question. Is like what your thoughts were of the film, having come to watch it for the first time. And again, I don't mean to keep kind of talking about my interview with Felissa, but I did pose the question about what she would think a modern audience would make of it, and she was saying actually a lot of the people that come to these conventions are a lot younger, and they're discovering this film for the first time. So it does feel like one of those films that does keep giving in that respect. And your response to that seems to echo that exactly. Did your sister say whether she enjoyed it, or is she yet to see it?
She hasn't seen it yet. Unfortunately, she hasn't had the time. But but I'm very keen, because we usually break down things. I think we were talking just before the podcast about Labyrinth, and I was picking her brain about that and stuff.
Cool.
Yeah, just because she put me onto Hedwig and the Angry Inch, and we all watched Rocky Horror and stuff like that as a kid. And again, she was also studying psychology for a while there, and as a what was it, funeral director, like, in the mortuary sciences and stuff like that too. So that's where partially I get a lot of my interest in the eclectic things. I'll get a question, or we'll talk about something, and I'll go, well, I don't know the answer, rather than just leaving it at I don't know. Let's see if anybody else has had a look. And now because of the internet, I mean, that's what's so great.
See, that's the thing. I'm terrible at that. Like, I'll be sitting there watching something with my wife, and something will come up in it, and I go, what's that? And I'll have the computer there, and I'll open it up and start typing away, and my wife's like, why aren't you just watching the film? I was like, well, I genuinely want to know about this thing. I'm like, I'm intrigued, and I'm terrible. I want to learn more about stuff, and it's something that comes across that I'm not aware of. I'm like, well, I want to know what that is. And like you said, that's there. All right, so so Sleepaway Camp, you're a big fan. You said big quote from you. I'm going to put it out there. You're saying best film of 2020. That's a big bold statement.
The best film I'd seen in 2020. I haven't seen every film that's been made this year.
I beg your pardon.
So far, every film that I've seen, absolutely, yeah.
Well, that's still a big, bold statement in itself. So I'm guessing from that you would recommend it to a modern-going audience or somebody who hasn't seen it before?
With the proviso, obviously, it's a slasher flick. Like, you know, as in, it's a horror, like, you know, and it's made in the 80s. I think those are the only things that you go, this will let you know what you're going to see, because some films, you know, you do want to go into it going, at least Sleepaway Camp, though, tells you everything.
Yes. Well, look, here's the thing. Like, so people, the character, I'm going to end it on this note. The character Angela Baker certainly entered the forefront of a lot of horror lovers' minds and has become an icon. The character has become an icon ever since, and so much so that you know, as we said, spawned a few more follow-up films for good or ill. And which led to a lot of people kind of wondering whether Felissa Rose would ever reprise the role. And it's something that she definitely said she would like to do, because she doesn't feel like Angela's story has been fully, completely told yet. But it remains to be seen whether or not that can happen. Will we get a revival of this? Like, we're talking about it now. Could it potentially be something like in like a couple of years' time when it gets with the big 4-0 coming around in 2023, like, will we get another Angela reprisal? Who knows? But until then,
it'll fit to that lore as well of the previous films.
Exactly, yeah, and it's always a hard thing to live up to when you've got something like that too. So it'll be interesting. But look, we've put it out there. Saul Muerte speaking as the lead surgeon, joined by Richard Lovegrove, which, with my big thanks to him and joining me with that discussion today on Sleepaway Camp. And we're putting out there that it is a movie that you should go and see if you haven't seen it already. And I reckon there's a just cause for it to have that cult status that's been attached to it for sure. But let us know your thoughts. Were you a fan? Did you see it when it first came out in 1983 and you've had a love for it ever since? Are you yet to discover it? Or if you have seen it like Mr. Lovegrove has just recently and can't praise it enough? Let us know your thoughts on the usual social platforms. Until then, as I said, I'm your host, Saul Muerte. Thanks for joining me, and thanks again, Mr. Lovegrove.
John. Levin. Angela.
Rocky.
Oh, Billy.
You're listening to the Surgeons of Horror podcast. Music supplied by Peter Nezik. For more discussions or podcasts, head over to surgeonsofhorror.com or head over to our Facebook and Twitter sites for the latest news and updates.